Lesson 25, we are getting into the tabernacle, which may sound boring at first. Pretty cool going through it. I was really enjoying it. It is, I'll just say it openly. To read the whole thing, which I did, that is a bit dry. It's a pretty lot of specifics, but you start picking out the highlights, and it kind of moves along. It's like, wow, there's a really awesome lesson or multiple lessons to be covered in this, which I thought was very encouraging. But it is. We're going to skip around a little bit this morning to get there because there's a lot of details, like right down to what type of hook we're going to use to hang this curtain and where it's going to be and all that stuff. But we're going to have fun with that. Before, though, to bring us into why the tabernacle, why are we here in the story, last week was a pretty big event. What was the expressly stated purpose of the law that we looked at last week? Right, the law was given at Mount Sinai. What was the purpose of that? We did talk.
Not good.
To show us that we're not good. Anybody want to rephrase that?
Incapable of being holy.
We're incapable of being holy or righteous, right? Holy, set apart, righteous, actually good. Yeah, and that was Romans 3:19. We saw that. There's multiple references in the New Testament say this was the actual purpose. Like he says it explicitly. God says that. How did the law provide a means of restoring Israel's relationship with God? We looked at this. It didn't. Yeah, it didn't. The law didn't provide any way of fixing a relationship. It just showed it's broken. Look at, here's a standard that you cannot meet. The law did not offer help. It only offered condemnation. And that is again reiterated in the New Testament. The purpose of the law is to condemn. That is what the law does. Who delivered the Ten Commandments to the people? Almost.
God did.
God did. That was the thing. To me, it was like light bulb. God delivered the Ten Commandments, and then Moses later on received the tablets with the Ten Commandments written on them.
Right.
God spoke the Ten Commandments to the people. He communicated, this is my standard, says the rocking, burning mountain, Yahweh, who is here on this, like, not a volcano, but an impressive thing, spoke them there. How did the Israelites respond to being spoken to by God directly? Terrified. The response, please let's not do that ever again. That's like, I see a holy, righteous God. He's communicating to me. I am feeling the issue here. I don't want that again. That was their response to that. I said, we specifically want a mediator. And I guess I'll piggyback off the comment you just made real quick. Call them wimps, John. I would say, actually, remember, Israel, I would say that high 99.9%, we would be the same. Our reaction would be the same as the Israelites' reaction. Like, anyone who meets God and he starts to show a little bit of who, like his glory, his power, his awesomeness, we don't handle it well. Humans, fallen humans, do not do well being contrasted with God. It's too much for us. And especially with the story here, remember, the only thing that makes us different than the Jewish people here is what's been made true of us. It's nothing in and of ourselves. So when we see the Jews, what God is giving us in the history of the Jewish people is like a condensed, like it's like a sampling of humanity. Here's humanity. How does humanity do? And he's going to put them in all of these different situations, and we can see, oh, that's how humanity does. That's what humanity looks like when given all of these opportunities and all of these blessings and all of these special situations, and they fail and they fail and they fail. We know the history of the Jews. They're going to fail. That's what all of us would have done in that position. We are the same. They're children of Adam. This is how children of Adam stand up to a righteous, holy God. Not well. And so when we see this story here, and even with the tabernacle, and the reason the tabernacle is given, if we, the people here at Cornerstone, were put back there, and this was redone with us there, it would go very much the same. We would change a few details. We would fail just as much as Israel failed. That is what people do. So it's a good lesson. That's why this is so helpful. I mean, the New Testament says this was written so that we could learn about ourselves. So we saw last week that the law was unattainable. It's an unattainable standard, not because the bar was set too high, not because God was being unrealistic, but because people have that inability. God knows what's a reasonable standard. He created man to be in fellowship with him, right? So then he says, and I think I said it several times last week, if you were to go to Adam, after he was newly created and given these rules, these commandments, he'd be like, okay, this isn't a problem. Like, man was created to be righteous, but what we see here is we're not. We're not righteous. But not because God is being unreasonable. It's just showing the reality of our situation. I want to keep that in mind. Humanity can't meet a perfect standard because humanity is inherently flawed. Not the Jews, humanity. The Jews, we're getting to see ourselves in them. So this presents the obvious problem of God's latest communication with man has made it glaringly obvious that man is sinful and man deserves punishment, right? We went through, I think Mark made the comment, like, okay, maybe we could kind of convince ourselves that we're going to be okay for most of them, then you get to covetousness and you're like, okay, now I'm done. Like, no, I can't. And I'd say an honest look at it would say multiple strikes against me for sure. I'm like 2 for 8 or something, of where I would measure up with how am I doing on the law there. So now we're going to get to the law. The giving of the law was immediately followed by God instituting a very specific sacrificial system, right? He says, okay, here's what perfection looks like. Here's what righteousness looks like. Whoa, I can't do that. Okay, here's now the situation. And the Jews didn't respond this way. It took them a long time to get there. But if they were being honest and with themselves, and they looked at the law, they'd say, whoa, I need something else. This law is destroying me. This law is making it impossible for me to have a relationship with God because it shows I'm deficient. I need something else. And so God offers that, and that's what we're going to look at today with the tabernacle and the sacrificial system. Okay, because I've given you this level, this law, that it shows you're horribly deficient, now I'm going to give you this other means of having some semblance of a relationship with me. And we are going to skip a lot. We're going to skip a lot of drama. We're going to skip the calf. We all know it's a thing that happened, the golden calf. Just not getting into it, not because it's not important, because we're trying to keep a theme going throughout Scripture here. And there's a lot of really good stories we're skipping. I'd encourage you, we're going to start in Exodus 24. Read through it. I mean, even if you skip the building stuff, and then you'll find there's some stories in there that's just like, wow, that was a very impressive interaction that took place there. Mm-hmm. We're going to go to Exodus 24. We'll be picking it up in 12. Exodus 24:12. The law has been communicated to everyone. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain. Stay there, and I will give you the tablets of stone on which I have inscribed the instructions and commands, so you can teach the people." So Moses and his assistant Joshua set out, and Moses climbed up the mountain of God. Moses told the elders, "Stay here and wait for us until we come back. Aaron and Hur are here with you. If anyone has a dispute while I'm gone, consult with them." Then Moses climbed up the mountain, and the cloud covered it. And the glory of the Lord settled down on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. On the 7th day, the Lord called to Moses from inside the cloud. To the Israelites at the foot of the mountain, the glory of the Lord appeared at the summit like a consuming fire. Then Moses disappeared into the cloud as he climbed higher up the mountain. He remained on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. Pam, you were sharing a few weeks ago how you went to the doctor's office for your appointment, and then you waited for 2 hours before seeing the doctor. Moses went up to meet with God and waited for 6 days. Come up, I want to talk with you. Yeah. In 6 days. It's an interesting thing there. We're just going to see that God kind of with the 7. It seems to come up a lot with scripture and stuff. But they go up. Joshua, obviously, the second time he's mentioned here, becomes a very key player later on in the story. He's kind of Moses' right-hand man going up. He had done some battle stuff earlier. Now we see he's actually one of the guys, the only guy, going up with Moses as kind of his aide. Mm-hmm. And the Ten Commandments were given to the people before the tablets were. It's one of those things to keep in mind. That's already been communicated. He's not going to get the Ten Commandments. He's just getting the tablets that would have them on it. And we'll keep this story going here. And I guess it would just be interesting to note, too. So they don't know, he's not tweeting this, right? He's not live tweeting or whatever you call it, live chatting, or I don't know what the kids are saying these days, but not live streaming, so they see him go up, and then this fireball comes down and says, "Oh, there goes Moses." All right, what just happened here? Did he sin and now he's gone? There is definitely some ambiguity on the part of the people. They've heard from God, but also things are a little weird here. I would describe it as weird if I was there. Not how I thought that was going to go. Go ahead, 25. We'll keep the story going in verse 1. We'll read down to verse 8. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel to bring me their sacred offerings. Accept the contributions from all whose hearts are moved to offer them. Here's a list of sacred offerings you may accept from them: gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, fine linen and goat hair for cloth, tanned ram skins and fine goat skin leather, acacia wood, olive oil for the lamps, spices for the anointing oil and the fragrant incense, onyx stones and other gemstones to be set in the ephod and the priest's chestpiece. Have the people of Israel build me a holy sanctuary so I can live among them. You must build this tabernacle and its furnishings exactly according to the pattern I will show you." A couple really cool things in there. First off, okay, take stuff from the people. We're going to build this thing. I am going to come and live among the people. We kind of take this for granted because we know the story. Oh yeah, God's going to go live amongst the Israelites, going to do the tabernacle, blah, blah, blah. No, big deal, right? So far, they've just met Yahweh, right? As far as like he kind of said, he presented himself to the people as this fireball, this impressive God that terrifies them. And say, hey, I'm actually going to go and live in the camp with you guys. I'm marking you as my special people. You are my chosen nation to the extent that I will actually be taking up residence with you. That's a very big deal, right? That's something that should stand out in kind of history, like when God tabernacled with men, which that term just means lived. It'd be like a tent, tabernacle tent. It's like a little house type of thing. But what he's saying there is a big deal. It's never been done before, and you must build this tabernacle, this tent, and furnish it exactly as I show you, right? It doesn't mean, hey, everything's cool. Hey, we're best friends now. Let's build our tents. Let's put our tents right next to each other. It's like, no, I'm going to come and be with you, and this is how it's going to go down. I'm going to be with you, and we're going to see the whole way he lays this out. Him coming amongst the people is going to highlight how not okay things are, how there's barriers, how there's problems with access. And he's going to come close to them. They are still separated and relationally distant from him. And that's going to be over and over and over. We'll see that highlighted in how he communicates this. He makes it clear. You're going to do this exactly the way I tell you to, is how this needs to be done. Actually, later on, we'll talk about some consequences. Like, I'm serious. Like, I'll kill you if you don't do it the way that I want it done. I'm teaching you things, and I want this lesson to go forward here. For man to have access to God, he must come to God God's way. And we're going to see that throughout this time here. If you want to jump to Exodus 25, well, it's not jumping, we're just continuing on. 25:10. So he starts in now, and the next, lots of chapters, going to be tons and tons of details of, when I do, I try to be a laid-back guy. I try to do that. So when I have a builder come in, even with that, we had our house was under construction and stuff. I try to, okay, here's kind of what I'm looking for. I want bookshelves to be like this, but at the same time, you're the builder. I want you to use your judgment. I want it to hold books. I want it to be over in this corner. What sort of structure are we going to do here? Builder, you have a lot of freedom. I tend to go that route with people. I want to be easygoing. God went the other extreme. This is the screw you're going to use. It's going to be this far apart, this much cloth, not more. It's going to look exactly like this. Kind of cool. He definitely had a plan with what he was going for here, but very different than I approach things. Have the people make an ark of acacia wood, a box, a sacred chest, 45 inches long, 27 inches wide, and 27 inches high. Overlay it inside and outside with pure gold, and run a molding of gold all around it. Cast 4 gold rings and attach them to its 4 feet. 2 rings on each side. And there's a bunch of other stuff there. But who's here has seen Indiana Jones? Right?
Yeah.
Just
That's
about
ridiculous,
everybody.
yeah.
It gives you a pretty good idea. I mean, it's off on a lot of
ridiculous.
things. It is a ridiculous movie.
You know why?
There's lots of reasons why it's ridiculous. We're not gonna get into the ridiculous reasons of it, but it does give a visual. There was kind of like that. It was kind of like that with the box. And what's cool though is then you get to this next passage here. Oh, and he calls it the Ark of the Covenant. I've always used that as just the title, like a proper noun. It's like, oh, the Ark of the Covenant. It's like what it is. It's a very literal, descriptive thing, right? The Ark. It's the box of the covenant. It's the box that has the covenant in it. Put the covenant that I'm writing on the tablets, put it in the box. It's the box of the covenant. It's like, oh, okay. That's like how I name my, whenever I name a Word document, it's super literal, way boring. I'm the worst at titling things. My mom picks on me about it. But yeah, so the tabernacle, or the Ark of the Covenant, it's going to be the box with the covenant in it. Along with that box, in verse 17, then make the ark's cover, the place of atonement, from pure gold. It must be 45 inches long and 27 inches wide. Then make 2 cherubim from hammered gold, and place them on the 2 ends of the atonement cover. And he gets, again, lots of specifics there. Go down to verse 16. Sorry, I was just at 16. What did I just do? No, I meant, sorry, go to 17. Yeah, I will read the whole thing. All right, because actually we'll focus on this for a minute, because the atonement cover, this is the centerpiece of the whole tabernacle. Like the whole tabernacle, everything else is built around this piece, the lid to the Ark of the Covenant, called the mercy seat or the atonement cover. Verse 19, mold the cherubim on each end of the atonement cover, making it all of one piece of gold. The cherubim will face each other and look down on the atonement cover. With their wings spread above it, they will protect it. Place inside the ark the stone tablets inscribed with the terms of the covenant, which I will give to you. Then put the atonement cover on top of the ark. I will meet you there and talk to you from above the atonement cover, between the gold cherubim that hover over the Ark of the Covenant. From there I will give you my commands for the people of Israel. So first way that Indiana Jones was wrong, no, God wasn't living inside the box. He said, I'm going to meet you above that. I'm going to be hovering above that. Here he says, later on, he says, I'll actually just be like in spirit form. My glory will be visible above that thing there. This is a very important part of the tabernacle. This is where God is actually tabernacling with man, is on this pedestal, and it's kind of cool with how he represents it. First off, these cherubs are not little cupids, right? Not little naked boys with bows that we see. It's like, that's not at all what's going on. If you want to read later on your own, read Ezekiel 1. Holy cow. This is a thought-provoking being. This is an incredible angelic, supernatural being that it's one of those passages you can read it in Scripture, like this poor prophet was trying to describe something he could not get his head around. He's like, it kind of looks like this and this and this. An incredible being. And the cherubim are often presented as these are the beings that surround the throne of God in heaven. A prophet is a vision of God, and there's these cherubim, these incredible angelic beings around the throne of God. So now he's like, okay, when I tabernacle with man, I want you to represent kind of what it's like in real life in heaven where I am. There's the cherubs surround me. The cherubim are surrounding me. I want them represented here. And it's good to note, too, this isn't an idol. He's not saying make a representation that is God. He's saying, no, you make a little pedestal thing where I will come without form. You can't actually see me, and I will meet with you here above this thing. You're not making an idol. You're making a meeting place, a place where I will be coming down. And you're going to do it exactly like I say. There's no creative license here. I want it to look just like this. And even the idea of the angels. I want their wings out, but I want their heads facing down, right? They're in a kind of honor-giving posture, these angels. They're kind of going to be bowing, and I will appear. My glory will be above them right there in this place. Kind of cool. The Spirit of God is actually going to hover over the place of atonement. And then everything else is going to follow around this. Mm-hmm. So we get to the tabernacle structure, and go ahead and reference your sheet here. We're going to I'm going to assume that we're all looking at this as I talk, because I'm not going to be explaining tons. There's just too many details. We'd be here all morning, and you guys would be bored to death, and you'd hate it. But it is helpful, because God was so specific that you can do drawings like this, and it's going to be almost... There's little creative license to be had. He's so specific about exactly how this is going to look. So we'll just go ahead and reference this throughout as we go through this. The tabernacle structure in Exodus 26:30. So he starts off with, hey, I'm going to meet with you. He starts with this little box. There's this huge structure. He starts with the little box because that's the most important part of it. That's where he's actually going to be meeting. The rest of everything is going to be surrounding where God is going to be meeting with the people. So Exodus 26, verse 30. Set up this tabernacle according to the pattern you were shown on the mountain. All of the stuff before, there's like lots and lots of talk about what the pattern actually is. But again, do it the way I'm telling you. I want it to look like this. It's very specific. The general dimensions and size of it, it would be roughly very close to the size of 4 shipping containers, like a tractor trailer thing. If you put 2 down and then put 2 on top of those, it'd be about that size, about 16 feet wide, 45 feet long, about 12, 15 feet high. The dimensions are there. I'm just going to put it relatable for us. So it's not huge. It's big. He's designing it to come apart. He's designing it because they're going to be traveling people. He's designing it to be taken apart, but it's going to be a box. And everything in it is going to be covered with gold. God does know how to do a little bit of pomp and ceremony. He's like, hey, when you're doing this, I want it to be fully gold inside. When someone goes in here, it is going to look like a holy place. It's going to have little candles burning. It's going to be reflecting. Every surface you see will be gold. There's actually going to be a tapestry. I was laughing about it with Rochelle this morning. So you can see there's like 4 layers of stuff covering it. From the outside, it looks like an animal skin. It is an animal skin. From the outside, he puts this gorgeous tapestry. It's embroidered with angels and symbols and beautiful colors and like royalty colors. He says you put that on first, so that's visible from the inside, but then you cover it so no one gets to see it. I'm going to do tons of work embroidering this thing that you people will never ever get to see. This is because I'm creating a holy space for me. I want it to be representative of the God that is going to be stepping in there. And then in chapter 26, verse 31, for the inside of the tabernacle, make a special curtain of finely woven linen. Decorate it with blue, purple, and scarlet thread and with skillfully embroidered cherubim. Hang this curtain on gold hooks attached to 4 posts of acacia wood. And he gets on. He's going to go for quite a while here. Well, for a little bit. Down in verse 33, hang the inner curtain from clasps and put the Ark of the Covenant in the room behind it. This curtain will separate the holy place from the most holy place. So he starts off, I'm going to be tabernacling with man. I'm going to be living among you. Put my box in a room and then put a curtain in front of it. That's a separation. What we'll be seeing as we get going here is nobody's allowed in there. I'm going to be with you, and the first thing I want you to do is block that off so no one has access to me. And we'll go to Leviticus 16. It's not that no one has access to me. It's for you to have access to me. There's going to be so many clearances and things that are going to have to take place for you to ever get in here. In Leviticus 16, even the priests, right? The priests who are engaging with all of this stuff, they're given special limitations, very specific ones. In Leviticus 16, 2 and 3, again, he's got so much information here that we've got to kind of pick through it because it's hard just to read through it. Leviticus 16, 2. The Lord said to Moses, warn your brother Aaron, the high priest, the most priestly of them all, I guess you'd say. If anyone had the authority to enter into the presence of God, it would be Aaron, who's been given the title of high priest. Warn your brother Aaron not to enter the most holy place behind the inner curtain whenever he chooses. If he does, he'll die. For the ark's cover, the place of atonement, is there, and I myself am present in the cloud above the atonement cover. When Aaron enters the sanctuary area, he must follow these instructions fully. He must bring a young bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. Go down to verse 6. Aaron will present his own bull as a sin offering to purify himself and his family, making them right with the Lord. Jump to 15. More instructions again, just lots of details. Then Aaron, after he does some other stuff, then Aaron must slaughter the first goat as a sin offering for the people and carry its blood behind the inner curtain. There he will sprinkle the goat's blood over the atonement cover and in front of it, just as he did with the bull's blood. Through this process, he will purify the most holy place, and he will do the same for the entire tabernacle because of the defiling sin and rebellion of the Israelites. Okay, so this area back here where God will be residing, the only way Aaron, the high priest, is able to come in here. So first, before you even get into the tabernacle, the priests have to do purification rites. Then they get in the tabernacle, and he says, before Aaron can come in here, extra purification rites. There's special ones for that. Then he's got to offer a sin offering for himself so that he can offer a sin offering for the people of Israel. Like, you've got to, to get to this point, and that's once a year. Once a year, the most holy priest has to do all of this stuff to allow him to go in here and say, we are horrible people. We have sinned. Please forgive us. Please don't judge us with the judgment we deserve. We want that to be forestalled, is how God communicates this later on. I'm gonna not judge you. I'm gonna look at the blood of this animal, not judge you, but next year you're back here again. Like your sin is still there. You're still guilty before me. There's still separation. This was not we come to church and it's kind of a happy, like, hey, we're going to church. We're going to the. This was not a happy place. This was not a place where you go and you're like, woo, going to the tabernacle today. Gonna go to the Holy of Holies. Aaron was shaking in his boots to go back there. God didn't tell him to do it, but Jewish history would say they used to tie a rope to the high priest's ankle when he would go in to do this in case he botched it and was smoked. They're like, there's a good chance he might die. We'll drag his dead body back out. It was kind of their thought with engaging with God. So it's like, hey, I'm living among you, not in an okay capacity, not in an all is well. We're God's people, and he's just here. We're all hunky-dory. The sacrifices didn't solve the problem. They had to be repeated. And this is, again, highlighting the separation. So there's a room that not even the priest can go into, and that's just the Holy of Holies. That's what we call that. Or the most sacred place is part of the tabernacle. We tend to say this is the tabernacle, and then if you look on your other page, this is the outer court. Some people, it's one of those terms. People can use it a little bit differently. Usually, though, when we're talking about the tabernacle, it's this, and this would be the Holy of Holies, the most sacred space of the tabernacle that God has set up. There's the curtain in Exodus 26. Sorry, so that was the tabernacle. The Holy of Holies has this curtain, and then he says, okay, there's a curtain separating me from you guys. Okay, now at the entrance in verse 36, Exodus 26:36, make another curtain for the entrance to the sacred tent. Make it of finely woven linen and embroider it with exquisite designs using blue, purple, and scarlet thread. All right, I'm going to live amongst you, and then there's a curtain to show the division. And then there's a little space, and there's another curtain that doesn't even let you get to the curtain of the division. More space, more distance, more place where you're not allowed to go to access me. And even the most elite had to watch how they were able to engage with this, right? A priest wasn't even allowed to go in here. He had to do special rites just to make it into this area, to do some special things. We're not going to talk about that. That's just off limits. So he's making it in a regular occurrence. They would come here every day, have to purify themselves to come close to the presence of God. Every day this was going on. This is something he's pushing this on the people, this idea of their unworthiness, because they cannot keep the covenant that he's already put in place for them there. And go to Leviticus. Oh, we'll do one more. Sorry. Exodus. I told you guys before, it's hard for me when I've got to jump around through so much text. It throws me. My brain doesn't function well with that. Exodus 27. So we've got two curtains here. A curtain for the Holy of Holies, a curtain to get to the curtain of the Holy of Holies. Now in Exodus 27, verse 9. Then make the courtyard for the tabernacle enclosed with curtains made of finely woven linen. And jump down to verse 16. For the entrance to the courtyard, make a curtain that's 30 feet long. Make it from finely woven linen. Right. So flip to your back page. Here's what interaction with God looks like for the Jews. Here's a curtain to keep you away from me. Here's a curtain to keep you away from the curtain that keeps you away from me. Here's another curtain that lay people, normal folks, are not allowed to go through. All right? So for a priest, gets himself ready for his priestly duties and goes in here, then he's got to do other priestly duties to get into here, and then once a year, one of them, after doing a bunch of special things, is allowed to go into here. For a normal person, you're out here. And we'll get into in Leviticus 17, talks about what a normal person would be experiencing when he goes to engage with this. So this is kind of the whole setup. We get to look at this whole inner sanctum and be like, oh, isn't this super cool? They weren't getting to see this. Most of the 2.5 million Hebrews are out here, and this is how they're going to be engaging with God as someone who's not allowed to get close to him. Go to Leviticus 17. No, sorry, Leviticus 1. That's what I meant. Leviticus 1. Fooled you. God sets this up for the people. This is how they're going to be engaging with the tabernacle. The Lord called to Moses from the tabernacle and said to him, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you present an animal as an offering to the Lord, you may take it from your herd of cattle or your flock of sheep and goats. If the animal you present as a burnt offering is from the herd, it must be a male with no defects. Bring it to the entrance of the tabernacle, so you may be accepted by the Lord. Lay your hand on the animal's head, and the Lord will accept its death in your place to purify you, making you right with him. Then slaughter the young bull in the Lord's presence, and Aaron's sons, the priests, will present the animal's blood by splattering it against all the sides of the altar that stands at the entrance to the tabernacle." Then you chop up the animal and you do all this stuff. Then the priest will burn the entire sacrifice on the altar as a burnt offering. It is a special gift of pleasing aroma to the Lord. So the normal person is going to come here with his animal. He's going to lay his hand on its head and say, okay, the God that is amongst us, but I can't access. He's hidden behind these things. His glory is hidden from me. I'm going to come close, kind of close to him here. I'm going to lay my hand on this animal's head. I'm going to say, okay, God, I'm coming before you because I have sinned, because I have a reason to offer a sacrifice, because I know that I deserve judgment. I come before you. I offer this animal. Please accept its death instead of my own. There's actually something missing from this picture here, right? We don't usually put it in to the tabernacle picture. What aesthetic isn't there?
The aura.
The aura, but that would be, the Shekinah glory or the aura of God. Right, there's that one. Thinking about what we just read.
Altar sacrifice?
That's there.
Is it?
Anybody ever been to a slaughterhouse? He's like, hey, I want you to kill this animal and spill its blood, and then they're going to chop up the animal, and then we're going to, blood. This would be like blood everywhere. There would be, even if you're cleaning it up and trying to keep it spiffy, there'd be blood all over the place. Or you're going to come to the tabernacle, and you're not coming to like some nice, pretty cathedral. There'd be a stench. There'd be death. You'd be seeing death. When you come to interact with God, you'd be like, well, look at, there's flies, there's blood, there's death, there's this smell, there's burning flesh, there's this stink of our sin, there's this stink of our sacrifice. Like this isn't a pretty place. This is a place of, I'm going here because I want access to God, but look what's between me and him. Blood, death, punishment, judgment. That's what is standing between it, and they're not allowed in past that. That is what stands between them, is the blood of bulls and goats. Stands between them and God. And this, again, 2.5 million people, a lot of sacrifices. This is a constant thing. I mean, this is just a constant system. This wasn't like, oh yeah, on Thursday there's a sacrifice. Every day there'd be a line of people offering sacrifices. I mean, it just been killing. This wasn't a place to hang out, right? Like this, no one's opening a coffee shop here. That's not a cool place. But that's what he wants. This is a picture he wants. And the way that he set up the tabernacle, it says everything in their camp was built around the tabernacle. It's like you set up the tabernacle in the middle, and everybody else, all the tribes are going to branch off from it. It's the center of camp. The centerpiece of your civilization here in the wilderness is this sacrificial system. It is this mark of your failing to meet the covenant. That's how it was intended. That was impressive me, thinking about like what that scene would look like. Because again, this is the very cleaned up version. That's not what the tabernacle would look like when you add all that, what's actually happening there. Mm-hmm. And if you want to go real quick to Leviticus 17, again, talking about these sacrifices and stuff and kind of how this goes. 17:10. God just talking about, again, lots and lots of rules that we're skipping. Partway through 10 there, it says, I'll just start in 11. For the life of the body is in its blood. I have given you the blood on the altar to purify you, making you right with the Lord. It is the blood given in exchange for a life that makes purification possible. This isn't worship. This isn't, oh God, I love you, so I'm offering this lamb that I like. No, you're a sinful person. I deserve death, and so I'm offering this animal's death instead of my own, right? This isn't a, hey, I'm doing a nice thing for you, God. It's I'm trying to forestall wrath. I'm trying to save my own skin, and I deserve much worse than I'm getting. It is, and it's definitely symbolic. This is not magic blood. We all know that. It's not magic blood. It's something God is instituting to teach a lesson. We've seen this lesson already, and we're going to continue to see it. God is trying to teach humanity how he is going to bring about salvation. And it's through this vicarious death, something dying, a perfect, innocent animal dying, so that we could avoid judgment. And yet, it's not enough. They have to keep doing this constantly. Every day they're having to do it. Then every year they have to do it for the nation. It's not enough. They're seeing, here's what we have to do, and it's still not enough. We have to constantly be doing this. So with all of this, there's the guide we go through, and then in Exodus 39, jump back. Took a while to make all this happen. It was about 9 months. Exodus 39:42. Nope, that's not going to work. Well, 39:42, yes. So the people of Israel followed all the Lord's instructions to Moses. Then Moses inspected all their work. When he found it had been done just as the Lord had commanded him, he blessed them. Go ahead to Exodus 40:17. So the tabernacle was set up on the first day of the first month of the second year. So 9 months later, after they were initially given the instructions on how to build it, they opened it up, and we'll read Exodus 40:34 to the end of the chapter. Then the cloud covered the tabernacle, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Moses could no longer enter the tabernacle because the cloud had settled down over it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Now, whenever the cloud lifted from the tabernacle, the people of Israel would set out on their journey following it. But if the cloud did not rise, they remained where they were until it lifted. The cloud of the Lord hovered over the tabernacle during the day, and at night fire glowed inside the cloud, so the whole family of Israel could see it. This continued throughout all their journeys. Again, in a visible way, God is tabernacling. God is living with them. He has set it up so they can all see God is there. Behind that wall, God is. There's his pillar of smoke that looks fiery too. So there's glory. It says in other verses, there's like a light shining in here. If there were any cracks in the tent, you'd see that light shining out. He's actually there. I can't get near him, but he's with us. And then when they go to move, it lifts up, it moves, and they go, okay, let's follow it. God's going over there, and they go, and they set up. They build the whole thing again. It comes back down, settles there in that spot amongst them again. Really kind of a cool interaction. Really a very unique thing that's happening here, very special in all of history as far as how God is interacting with these people. What was standing out to me as I was reading through this is just that idea. When I kind of led with it a little bit. The Jews of all people should have been moved to humility, right? They should have been, okay, I've been given this unattainable standard by the voice of God from a fiery mountain, and now I've been given this sacrificial system that still I can't ever do enough, directly given to me by God, and that's what they're given is so that you might know your sins, so that you might know how unworthy you are, so that you might know how much you need the salvation that I'm offering. Here's all of this stuff, and we know from the history of the Jewish people that wasn't how the response went. It tended to be like, yeah, look at us, we're awesome, we're the Jews, we have the law. Look at those other people, losers, awful. You guys all deserve horrible things to happen to you. You're not as good as us Jews. It's like, you missed it. You missed the message. Like, that wasn't the intent. But I was reading, I was like, man, that's human tendency, right? When we're met with personal failure, we would tend to take the thing that should be condemning me and find somebody else who I can kind of punch down to. Who's doing a little bit worse than me? Yeah, man, he needs to hear this message. Let me text him. Here's a message for this guy over here. They took what it was meant to condemn them and humble them and drive them to God, and they used it as a tool to elevate themselves in their own eyes. And I think if we take an honest assessment of Christianity, this would be one of the things that a lot of people would look at Christians and say, that's what Christians do. Christians are holier than thou. Christians are people who point and condemn, and they're looking down at everyone else. Rightfully so. We have that reputation at times, right? I think we all struggle with that idea of, yeah, I'm bad, but... Yeah, and we have, and maybe even just the way we communicate this, it's not we are in need of a Savior. It's like, well, by God's grace, I'm saved, and you need a Savior. And that it can go that route. And I was like, man, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be Israel. Knowing their history, knowing how they were met with, like, God does everything he can to teach them how much they need him, how humble they should be, and they go that other route with it, go to legalism. And try to use what should be humbling them to elevate themselves. So just as we engage with God's word, as we learn more about God and ourselves, let's let it move us towards humility and gratefulness and not pride. It would be one of the things I was looking at with this situation because, I don't know, I think almost every time, Israel, what's wrong with you? Like, oh, I'm doing the same thing that they did, right? I'm taking this story that should be convicting me, and I'm using it to point at another group of people and say, look at how dumb they are. It's like, no, that's what they did. Like, don't keep doing that thing. And again, just like last week or the week before, this type of story just highlights where we are now in our relationship with the Lord and all that. What a great juxtaposition there, or a contrast that we have of those things. But I thought it was a very cool, I don't want to call it a story, like a example or illustration that God created here of this is when I actually come down in my glory to be with people, and there's this division. This is how people react to this. This is how this went down. And then we're going to see other examples throughout history of God dealing with people, but trying to prepare them for his salvation, trying to prepare him for his means of reconciling them to himself, because none of this is actually going to work. That's what I did have for this morning with the tabernacle. Again, we're going to start. It's going to start picking up. We've got a little bit more time with these folks, and then we're going to start flying through some Jewish history to get up to the New Testament.